Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Assassin's Creed, your number one podcast for all things Assassin's Creed. In today's episode, it's a very unique and special. It's a Valhalla overview again, because there's more news that's just completely blown my mind. But we have a guest, and it's a guest that I've been following for years. Well, not years, but a year. I like to exaggerate sometimes. We are joined with Colin, who is one of the community admins of the Ones Who Came Before group. It's an amazing group. There's a link in the description to their Twitter. I would advise you go check them out. So instead of me blabbering on who they are, I'll pass you over to him to tell you who they are, and then we can dive into some Valhalla overviews. Over to you, my good man.
Thank you very much. That was a very nice introduction. It's great to be here. It's the first time I've done an Assassin's Creed podcast in quite a while, but it's great to be back. So yeah, as you said, the Assassin's Creed fan community I run is the Ones Who Came Before. So we've been running it for about 5.5 years now. We're getting on for 6 years in August coming. And basically we try to overview sort of a range of Assassin's Creed things for the community. So we do like theories, news, community projects sort of thing, but we're always working on something behind the scenes. But I mean, as you say, it is one of them where the Assassin's Creed community is such like a vast place to explore that there's always something to do.
It's a rabbit hole. It's, as a term I've used for Assassin's Creed, it's the Kingdom Hearts effect. It's so huge, you don't know where to go. And your page has to be one of the best places to go to catch up on the news and articles. And you also have a Discord group, which, if you're new to Discord, please check it out. The fan community in there is so delightful. It's unreal.
Thank you very much.
Take a cuddly bear.
Discord's sort of new to us. We're trying to expand our reach a bit because we're traditionally Facebook and Twitter. And to give you some kind of idea of like how big it is now, it's about 25,000 people. So it has really grown over the last few years, and it's become like this monster of a community. I remember when it started with 1-2 fans, and it was just us pushing our theories. But now it's this big group. We've got the Discord, we've got Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and we've also got the website now as well, which we started last year. So that's like the main project. We do so much on the website on a daily basis. We try to do like a range of articles, and we also have like a subgroup of the Ones Who Came Before now. We have the AC partnership program, and basically we get content creators like Lisa Zaman, for example, or like we get people who are trying to make their name in the Assassin's Creed community, and they're creating content on a regular basis, and we give them a platform to use. So in the program, the main idea is to give these guys like a space to work, and we give them like a brief, and they hit the brief, and content's made on a regular basis, like articles, fan art, and we do competitions and things through that. So the Ones Who Came Before is like a big umbrella term for a huge community now. But as always, I love working within the Assassin's Creed community, and it's great how many things we work on together.
And I think that's one of the reasons I've actually, if I remember, was there the day you guys put on your website for the first time. You put it on Facebook, and I was like, what's this? I might go investigate. And then I followed yours, and then you started talking about a few podcasters, and then I was like, hey, I like the sound of that. I might copy them and try my own foot in the door. And that was December, and now I feel like I'm talking to royalty. I feel like bowing to you, but I'm sitting on my floor with my phone in my lap, so I can't really bow. But let's just pretend I'm bowing.
I really appreciate the support, to be honest, because everyone who's ever supported the Ones Who Came Before has made it what it is today. And like without the community support, it would still be at that 1, 2, 3, 4 people stage. But it really has grown because of the support, and I do really appreciate it.
So let's jump into some Assassin's Creed, because I could be sat here as the just chatting about how much I love your group, and then people will be confused. I was going to name this episode The Ones Who Came Before to go over your group name, chatting to a fan who's been following, if I use that term, they kind of thought I was going to be doing a huge special about the
Oh
pea
yeah.
suit, which kind of made me laugh. So, as the name suggests, this is going to be for Valhalla 2 because I did the cover one the day after the news came out.
Yeah.
So, let's dive into what we've been hearing so far because it's like they just opened the floodgates, held back so much, and now we're getting so much content. It's even making my head swim.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I mean, every day now we're getting like a huge dump of Assassin's Creed Valhalla information from articles or videos, and it is quite hard to know where to find everything. So that's like one of the goals of my group. We try keep everything concise and put it all in one place. But as you say, it is like the floodgates have opened and there's information everywhere.
One thing I was going to discuss in the group, but I decided to do today, is a lot of the information is, as I like to put it, slightly misrepresented because they're giving you information, but they're not giving you all the details. For example, they've talked about parkour and how there's situations where you can be parkouring. And then they showed you a picture today, which I put in the group, of a new location called Puzzle Forest, which screams AC free, parkour free trees. Yeah, Ash and Darby have been very against telling us yes or no to actual parkour in trees, which is
Yeah.
kind of annoying because why can't they just tell me? And I think the other one, and it's kind of a worry for me and a few friends, is the skill systems coming back, like Origins and Odyssey. But one thing that made Origins slightly annoying at times, there was no respec button. And this time around, they're not touching if you can respec your points, which is a kind of a detail you need to tell people if there's a skill tree, in my eyes.
So going back to your first point with parkour, all I've seen so far is in an interview with Ashraf, they said that they're going to try do the level design to a point where it makes the parkour shine. So every location in the game is going to be memorable, meaningful, and crafted to amplify the parkour opportunities, was what he said. So we can expect a different kind of parkour, I imagine, where you're rewarded for using that sort of approach. But as you say, parkour is one of the core pillars of Assassin's Creed, and it might be too early to discuss it right now in the marketing campaign, but you're right, though. It definitely does need to be covered in a bit more depth in future.
To be honest, I just want to know, can I hang in a tree with a rope down and play hangman? That was Assassin's Creed 3. And if you can, and I hope to God Ash hears this, because if he doesn't, I'm tweeting him, give us, and I'll pay you the money, a skin to look like the Predator, because I want to sit in a tree and throw an axe at somebody like the Predator. I don't care. Just let me do it, please.
Yeah.
I could just imagine doing that in Assassin's Creed 3, just predatoring up there with a rope dart.
Yeah. No, maybe like a range of skins that we've never had before, and they'll try push that sort of aspect. But going back to what you said about the skill tree, it sounds like it's going to feel familiar, but in a new sort of way. So it's like an expansive skill tree, and you're sort of rewarded for playing the way you want to play. And if you want to take like a stealth approach, they'll give you the tools to do that. So you can unlock abilities to, like, this is just one off the top of my head, to use your cloak to shield yourself, or your hood, and that'll give you better like stealthiness, I guess. So these skills are going to be available. Yeah, as you say, they're not really going into depth on these points. Like, I know the double blade kill, and that just sort of got like moved on a bit quickly from it. Like, we don't really want to go into this sort of thing right now, but there are skills available. But I imagine we're going to have more skills than ever because the whole thing's been revamped, and we're going to see a different sort of skill tree that really does reward the player this time.
It sounds like I missed it in Odyssey, but to contrary belief of some fans, you can still do it. But I do miss the one-shot stealth in the bushes kind of stuff, which if you build it right in Odyssey, you can. Like, I took out a fort last night of 20 guards and no one knew I was there. That's Assassin's Creed. But touching on the stealth and the skills, if you remember back to Syndicate with the rooks, I've been thinking, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Ash, in a interview, mentioned how if they did stealth, they'll go back and they'll talk about it in the Great Halls. What if we get a rook system again, where if we take down Fort X, very stealth, no alarms triggered, that sort of jazz, when you go back to your settlement, you unlock perks for your raiding party in stealth. Whereas if you do it as just kick the doors down, ring every bell, round them all up and chop them down, you would get increased perks in combat. Don't know if that's something, do you think, that would try and do or
I think that'd
avoid?
be an interesting way of doing it, where you reward the player for their play style. From what I've heard, social stealth's coming back, and they're going to put a new twist on it. So there could be several ways they could do this, but obviously stealth and that sort of approach is one of the core pillars of Assassin's Creed, and they really want to bring it back, but make it better than ever. So something like that, where you did a mission, you did stealth, and obviously you've got an achievement for it, or you've got extra loot or whatever from it. It would be cool if you were awarded for that, because we really want to see more stealth in this game, because that's one of the things I think Odyssey lacked. But going back to what you said about Syndicate, I think they had a really interesting stealth approach. Like Evie had a skill, the chameleon ability, so she could literally blend in with any environment. And I think with the blending effect, going back to Assassin's Creed 1, what Altair had, they're going to try bring that back. The social stealth where you're in the crowd and you are one with the crowd and you blend in perfectly. They're going to try bring sort of subtle stealth back, if that makes sense. And I think the skills that they're aiming towards are sort of along the lines of, like whistling in bushes to distract your enemies, or I don't know, using something like a poison dart. This is just like an example of what you can unlock, I imagine. But they are sort of going to be like tools and abilities to make you want to be a stealthier player and to give you the assassin experience at the end of the day.
And on about all that stealth, because that stealth is what's getting me hyped the most. But I also think, because it's 15 studios working on this, I have a similar belief, and I think After might have touched on it, but not a lot. Is it possible they could steal ideas from previous games, like they've done before? And maybe let's cast our minds to Breakpoint, where you could lie in mud, cover yourself in mud, and enemies would just walk past. I could see them using a similar mechanic, because say there's feigned death, and that imagines if there's bodies on the floor, you can just lie in them, and when the guards start prodding them, you jump up and stab them. And if that's what I'm doing, then I'm just going to play dead like a sick puppy all the time. Sounds so cool. So I think they could do aspects like that, but you are right, the stealth pillar is one of the biggest pillars. But one of the other pillars that not a lot of people are discussing is the actual Isu. How are they going to play a part this time? Because they need to play a part.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you said about the breakpoint thing, where you can go in the mud. I think that would be a very cool mechanic to bring into Assassin's Creed. If you're like me and you really do love, then I would hide for ages, like in that crouching position. The perfect opportunity, and something like that would just give you the edge a little bit more, because you're taking up less ground when you're in the bush or you're on a rooftop or something. But yeah, I could see them using something like that if they really wanted to push the stealth. But with the mythology, I hear it's going to be more grounded in this game, so it's going to be less like fighting Medusa and that sort of thing we had in Odyssey, and more like what we had with Bayek in Origins, where it was part of the belief system and it was part of everyday life. And these guys, the Vikings, that they really did believe that they could manipulate the gods by bribing them and sacrificing to please them, and you could fall out of favor with the gods. And I think it would be interesting to see if they bring that into the game in a grounded way rather than like over the top mythology, which they could do in DLC. But I think Origins did it better. I like the way Bayek was respectful to the gods. So I think it will be very interesting to see how mythology is brought into the game.
One touching on Bayek, because I just love Origins. One aspect of the mythology that I've not seen except for Bayek and the Lost Kingdoms, which, before I jump in, please watch that. It's epic. It shows Viking in England that could be representative to how Assassin's Creed will look, but anyway, that's something else. And I've been thinking about the potions because, like you said, they do want favors with gods, and a lot of them cast runes, which are bones of some sort. Do you think they could bring back a similar boss battle with the giant snake in Bayek with a potion or a drink or something like the shamans or I forgot what they're called now. The
Yeah,
witches
I
and
know.
wizards of
I
the
think
North
some of them are
world.
called the Seers. I've just been watching Vikings, and I know they've got the Seer. He's got the sight of the prophecy. But I think shamans are the witches and witch doctors of the time.
So I wonder, like just drink a little herbal tea and have a vision of a great battle that may not be legit, but because it's in a vision, it's a good belief mechanic.
Yeah,
You see,
I
it's a
mean,
good
I think that'd be
omen.
interesting. Have you played
Sounds pretty
the
cool.
Far Cry series? They've got that sort of like drug fuse missions, and they're always really interesting. And one I can think of in Assassin's Creed was in Unity, where Arno's doing his initiation, and he has the drink, and he's sort of in like a really strange paradox sort of style mission where he's running around and the whole building's collapsing and everyone's there, like all hooded, and he has to do his initiation. So that's sort of like a drug mission. I mean, with as you say, with the herbal tea or whatever, they could definitely bring in like giant snakes and things if they wanted to. I think Bayek had the giant snake, so they could do that again if they really wanted to. But I think Norse mythology will come into this game different way to what we've seen in Odyssey. So it will be more grounded and more believable, like a religion that's infused. So it will be interesting to see how they proceed with it.
And I'm hyped. Like, I'm not being rude. I'm one of these fans that if someone says there's a new Assassin's Creed mobile game, I get hyped. I was waiting for that Rebellion game for a year and a half, and I was hyped. But there is a controversial, and I have no idea what happened to my voice then, guys. But there is a controversial topic that I've tried to discuss with some friends outside of Discord, but no one listens. And that is, in the time of the 9th century, there is a lot of heavy Christian elements, and pagans were the Norse, the Danes, and the originals. And as a game that's always tried to be a game of multiple cultures and beliefs, they've never quite focused. We know that Jerusalem in the first one was heavy religious with the different factions, but that wasn't touched on as much. Do you think they'll try and not touch on the religious side, even though in the 9th century we know that the English would have been heavy Christians going to church, but the Danes were heavy pagans, and that led to a lot of conflict. So do you think they'll try and handle that tastefully or just kind of avoid it unless it's a controversial
Yeah, I don't
topic?
think they can avoid it. I think it's such a big element of the time period, and Christianity was so widespread. I don't think they can avoid it. So I think they will have to find a way of incorporating it in like an appropriate way. So obviously you have got the Norse in the Vikings TV show who outright hate Christianity, and like you can see that. But in a game, it's very hard to sort of cover this sort of topic. I mean, you've got to think they've got to do it because it was historically accurate and it is part of the background. But they might be able to find a way to incorporate it into the events that are going on and sort of make it more of the backstory than like a focus. But I feel like there are going to be some heavy elements in this game, even like, for example, priests who are like killed by the Norse or whatever they choose to do. I feel like they can't avoid it completely. And as you say, it is like quite a controversial topic. They need to find a way of doing it in a tasteful way. But that could be a bit of a challenge, I think. It's a difficult one.
And it's video games. You've got to get somewhere by breaking a few eggs, and I have utmost respect for the team, and I know they'll handle it tastefully. The way they depicted France in Unity, which was the most violent term in history, with all the beheadings, and they handled it very tastefully. They could have flipped it on its head to paint France at the time as this evil state run by Templars, but they didn't. So I can see them handling it very tastefully, and I'm very intrigued to see it because it's a very close time period compared to Origins and Odyssey. So recorded history is better, but it is still broken. And I think what I'm intrigued to see is, as Ash and Darby politely said in the first trailer breakdown, history is one-sided. A lot of people believe Vikings are these heavy-handed, hit you about, we're going to pillage, we're going to destroy. When in actual fact, they were just looking for a home that they would defend. They had different beliefs that came to conflict. And I kind of think this is going to be a backdrop for a game that's not going to feel immersive because it's an Assassin's Creed game, but feel immersive because it's going to be full of life and I can't pronounce the words, damn my dyslexia. And characteristics that like other games haven't had. So I think that's something they're going to try and do, which I'm excited about.
I think you're right on that. I think this will be one of the best games the series has seen, just by what I've seen and the scope of how big this game is. So it's already breaking records with the trailer views. But if you look at the guys who are working on the team and the amount of teams around the world working on this is going to be something special, I think.
It is, and I'm excited. And with the last point we cover, before I ask you a very good question, with all the teams working on it, there's 15, and this is a very debatable topic. Is it possible that they have secretly, within these 15 teams, been remaking Assassin's Creed 1? Because on next-gen platforms, we have 2 all the way up to Odyssey, but never touched 1. So is it possible that somewhere in these 15 teams, someone has been remaking 1?
See, that's a very good question. And I think your answer, you need to look at a time where it's best to release a game like that. So if they were making Assassin's Creed 1 remastered, it wouldn't come out this year because they've got a full marketing campaign ahead of them. We've got another 6, 7, 8 months, whatever, of Valhalla. And after that, they'll want a time where you've got all the post-launch content. So I'm not sure when the best time to release it would be, but I think in our lifetimes, we will see it. I think it's on the cards. I've got no information on it. Like, this is just speculation. But I think if they did it, they would go down a road where they use all the bits from like the mobile games and the Secret Crusade book, and they bring it all together and they bring the ultimate Altair experience. And if they did that, I think it could be one of the best remasters ever done, because it would bring all these elements together from transmedia and all these smaller parts and give you like a full rounded picture of Altair's life. And I really want to see it happen.
Oh no, I'm drooling. Just PS5 and Xbox next year release and the ultimate Altair experience. That would be a dream in heaven, because we know next gen is backwards compatible. So we know next gen we can still play the Ezio collection, free remaster, and Black Flag, but we'll still won't have a 1, and I need 1. I need my Altair boy. So before we run out of time, because I know I like to chat too much, I would like to hear a fan theory about the story and the setting from you. It's one that you completely believe on how this story could be.
No problem. Absolutely no problem. So one theory I'll go with, and it's sort of like side content, but it's already been confirmed to be in the game, is that Stone Circle is going to be in the game. You know, Stonehenge, it's where the pagan belief comes from. They do like the sun worship and stuff there. It's just like It's a location in England. It's just like giant. I mean, I'm not really like an expert on it, but in Assassin's Creed lore, I believe there's a first civilization temple underneath it, just going off like previous maps and things we've seen. And you know, when you see like the world map in Assassin's Creed and it spins around, it's got all the dots where the pieces of Eden are. I'm convinced that one of them is Stonehenge, and that we're gonna have like an underground vault there. So I think that could be the location of one of the most secret pieces of Eden, and it might be one that we've not heard of yet. But I'm really interested in finding out what's underneath that. But in terms of the story, I think Eivor's going to be pushed out of his homeland and is forced to settle, like was said. But I think the people who push him out might be like precursor Templars. So I'm not sure if they're going by like Cult of Cosmos or what they're calling themselves, but it's the ideology really. But I think they're going to Eivor into this battle. He's not going to want to be in it, but they're going to push him aside, destroy where he lives, and he has no other option than to turn to the assassins. And I think early on in the game, when he gets the hidden blade, he's going to be on this revenge quest, and he needs to somehow find a way of helping his people and the people back home as well, who have no doubt been hurt by these people. So I think it'd be very interesting to see how they do it, because a lot of people are comparing it to Black Flag right now, but I'd like to see it become its own unique experience. And I think this will be one of the most compelling Assassin's Creed stories, because Darby is one of the greatest writers on Assassin's Creed, and it's a pleasure to have him back on the brand.
Well, I have now just got goosebumps and hyped, because if Stonehenge is a temple to the Isu, and one of the directors of Ubisoft has said this is a kappa for all the storylines connecting, then we know that that place is a way for the Isu to come back. Because Afia says in Odyssey the Isu want to come back. They want to stop taking a step back and get involved. And if your theory is correct, we're going to see one of the greatest Isu twists in history.
There are so many pieces of Eden,
and now I'm more hyped.
And I wonder what's underneath that stone circle. Why is it really there? And who's underneath it? Are there first civilization entities we haven't met yet who are living under there? Or could there even be a way for Juno to somehow return? That'd be amazing.
And I've got literal goosebumps, and I'm going to have to admit, before we quickly run out of time, if they do not throw us a Doctor Who Easter egg in Stonehenge, I will be annoyed. And if nobody knows what I'm on about, the 11th Doctor has an episode where under Stonehenge is a prison to hold the Doctor. Please tell me there's going to be a reference. Maybe Juno's hidden in Pandora's box under there. I'm calling it.
You never know.
So, we never knew. So sadly, we have run out of time. Ever since I've got Anchor, I've never shut up. So I want to say a huge thank you for joining us, and I encourage everybody after listening to this episode, please check out the ones who came before. You may want to go down the rabbit hole of the Isu, but that's a separate topic. This is a fan community. It was just pure awesome. So thank you for all, and I will see you on Saturday's episode.